Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. Today we are going to discuss my Brawl deck tech for Korvold Fae-Cursed King. Let's go ahead and jump into the deck. Before we start though, if you wouldn't mind hitting like, hitting subscribe on the video, it really helps us out. Only if you're logged in though. If you're not logged in and you're just here to watch the video, sit back and relax. But if you are logged in, hit like, hit subscribe, go down there, click a button, really helps us out. Let's talk about the deck. Now, Korvold, when he comes into the battlefield, sacrifice another permanent, or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold and draw a card. He is a 5-cost flying 4/4. He comes in, though, as a 5/5 flying, because you do have to sack a permanent as soon as you cast him. So what do we want to do? We want to ramp to Korvold. We would love to play him early, get that pressure on. We do have green in our colors, so we have access to some ramp. And we want to build good sackable permanents in here, either that come in, do a thing, and then sit there and they're ready to be sacked for Korvold, or do something when they die, when they get sacked. So, let's take a look. We have got Gilded Goose early on. Ramp, nothing else to be said. Order of Midnight, returning a creature. Also, Flyer, if it can't get through, because obviously it can't block and be a chump blocker. If it can't get through, sackable to Korvold. Goblin Crater Maker. It triggers Korvold's ability. When you sacrifice Crater Maker, you can destroy a colorless non-land permanent, Ugin, or you can deal 2 damage to a creature if you need to do that. More mana ramp in Incubation Druid, obviously. Crawl Harpooner comes in as a removal spell for a flyer, which is awesome, because then it just sits there if it survives that removal and can be sacked to Korvold. Leafkin Druid, more ramp. Paradise Druid, more ramp. Dreadhorde Butcher. Number 1, one of my favorite cards in Standard. Number 2, it is one of the best sackable permanents for Korvold because it's going to do damage when you sack it and you just get extra value out of everything. Arcane Signet, because we are playing a 3-color deck, we can sacrifice it in a pinch if we need to. Finale of Eternity, I personally really like Finale of Eternity because it can be a 3-for-1. If we can get 3 target creatures, especially maybe like early mana dorks, some kind of blockers, Risen Reefs, things like that. If we play it for 3, we can kill 3 creatures with toughness 1. Play it for 4, 3 creatures, toughness 2, and so on. I really just like having a 3-for-1 that's ready to go. And if it is late game and you top deck it super late, make it 10 or more, then you can return all your creatures from the graveyard to the battlefield and you've probably pretty much won. Midnight Reaper. This looks great in this deck, right? More value off of sacrificed creatures. Plague Crafter, because it triggers Korvold's ability if Korvold's on the battlefield. When you play it, get them to sacrifice something, you sacrifice something, get to put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold and draw a card. Murderous Rider, because it's fantastic removal that then becomes a sackable permanent once it's on the battlefield. Thrashing Bronodon, you'll start to see a trend. We try and get instant and sorcery abilities, spells on sticks, so that we end up having a permanent that we can eventually sack to Korvold. Thrashing Bronodon is a disenchant that is on a stick. Judith, more value. We get a little bit of an anthem, we get a front end anthem, and we get more value out of sacrificed permanents. Mayhem Devil, huge. This card is played in the Sacrifice Standard deck. More value out of sacrificed permanents. Murder, premium removal spell on 3. What can you say? Tybalt, we get sackable devils and the ability to stop our opponents from gaining life, because at its core, this is an aggro deck, and we don't want them gaining back life that we have taken away. Chandra, are you kidding me? This is amazing. You get to create 2 1/1 elemental creature tokens that both get sacrificed automatically. Can you imagine every time you Chandra Acolyte of Flame, use that middle ability, Korvold gets 2 +1/+1 counters, and you get to draw 2 cards. Can't say enough about how strong this card is in this deck. Fine Broker, because you can return a permanent from your graveyard to your hand. You sacked a creature, you need to use your Brontodon again, you need to use your Murderous Rider again. Fine Broker's there for you. Ritual of Soot, this is a card that I've had in the deck, I've taken it out, I've put it back in. There's a lot of rush in the format. We don't want to get, play a Torbrand deck and it rush us out. It does, however, hit a lot of our plays. You can see how much we have on 3 mana and 2 mana and 1 mana on this deck. So Ritual of Soot is not a card that I'm 100% on, but I do like having a board wipe in the deck if we need it. Vraska. You can sack a permanent, gain a life, draw a card. You know what that reads now with Korvold on the battlefield? Sack a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold, draw a card, gain a life, draw a card. Vrask is fantastic. Also, you get to destroy their Arcane Signet, or whatever 3-cost or less permanent on their side is causing you problems. Status and statue, because it's a removal that's versatile. We can swing in with one of our little baby 1/1s. They block with a big creature. You'll see in the gameplay later we do this. Give it death touch with status, kill their creature. On the other hand, we can just straight up destroy an artifact, creature, enchantment if we need to. Got Eternal Bond 2. More value. Sack any number of permanents, draw that many cards, put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold for each permanent you sacrificed, draw a card for each permanent you've sacrificed. It's such a way to rebuild your hand, especially if Korvold is on the battlefield. If you have too many lands, sack some lands. If you have some creatures that give you value off sacks, sack those creatures. Put counters on Korvold, draw double cards. Massacre Girl is another board wipe that ends up leaving a permanent behind that we can sack to Korvold if we need to. Sir Conrad, because in this kind of deck, this is just the perfect card for it. We're going to get value, extra value off of all of the sacks, and that's what we're going for. Cavalier of Night, again, sack a creature, kill a creature, put a permanent, put a counter on Korvold, draw a card. It doubles the value, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. Cavalier of Thorns, because it's a fantastic creature. It's a 5/6. You get value when you do sack it. You get value when it comes onto the battlefield. Korvold's going to die. People are going to reserve their removal for Korvold. They know they have to keep Korvold off the battlefield. So we're going to need to ramp up because you're expecting to maybe recast Korvold 2-3 times. Nissa, Who Shakes the World, is just a fantastic card, and we're going to put her in the deck. Ravager, value. Destroy land with an activated ability. Fight a creature. It gets counters. It's a permanent. It's instant and sorcery abilities on permanents. That's what we're going for. Liliana says sacrifice on that middle ability. Each player sacks 2 creatures. We're drawing cards whenever a creature dies because of her. We're drawing cards whenever we're sacking things with Korvold. Garruk, because it's a fantastic creature, it makes wolves that we can sacrifice. This is a fantastic 1-2 punch because Garruk's going to make creatures that we want them to die so that Garruk can gain loyalty, and Korvold's going to be getting counters. Casualties, this is one like Ritual of Soot. I'm not 100% on this card. However, if the game goes long and we top deck it late, we can get an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, a land, and a planeswalker if they have all those on the battlefield. And with Brawl, you can bet that the boards just build and build and build. And if you can get a 3-for-1 out of this, that can be backbreaking. That can turn the game back in your favor or seal it. Beanstalk Giant, because again, we want abilities of instants and sorceries on creatures. Now with Adventure, that's hugely valuable. We can ramp early to make sure that we hit our Korvold when we want to, and later it's a big stompy creature that can get sacrificed in a pinch. Now, we're doing all this sacrificing. Why not have something that can return all of those creatures to the battlefield whenever we want them, just at the cost of 3 mana and 2 life? That seems pretty good. Let's jump into some gameplay. I want to show you a game that went very well. However, it went so well that our opponent ended up conceding early, but you can see the kind of start and the kind of raw power that this deck can present. This is an example of a great start. Now, one of the things of playing a casual event is that when opponents feel like the pressure is just insurmountable, they'll just go ahead and concede. So this isn't an entire game, but it's enough of a great start that you'll see what we're going for with the build of the deck. We threw our first hand back because there were too many high converted mana costs and not the right colors of mana. We snap keep our second hand because we've got a mana dork, which is huge for us in this deck, and we wake up with all 3 of our basics naturally ready to go. We get lucky and draw a mana dork right off the top going second, and we get to play a Gilded Goose. So we're very set up to be able to play Korvold on turn 3, which is just insane. It's just so much pressure to have a big threat that has to eat their first removal spell, and that it draws a card as soon as it comes into play as well. We play our Paradise Druid on turn 2, and now we're going to drop our 3rd mana and we're ready to fire off Korvold. However, they haven't played a threat yet, so we've got an option here. We also build into this deck good sackable permanent options. Dreadhorde Butcher is going to come down, swing for haste immediately, and give us a counter, and get us set up to play Korvold next turn and have a great sackable option that's not one of our mana dorks, which is what we would have had to do if we wanted to play Korvold on turn 3. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we do that, but playing Dreadhorde Butcher here leaves us the mana open to play Murderous Rider on whatever threat they pick to play, but they go ahead and concede because they see the pressure they're under and that we've taken off out of the gate real fast. Even though they conceded early, you can see the raw amount of power that this deck can put onto the battlefield, and it just keeps coming. It's so good at rebuilding because Korvold can draw cards, and it's just huge to keep your hand refilled with a deck like this. We appreciate you watching so much. Again, if you liked the video, hit like, hit subscribe. It really helps us out. If you want to support us further, we've got a Patreon. The link is down in the description below. And don't forget that we are streaming twice a week on Twitch, Tuesday and Thursday evenings. That's it for me. Let me know how you're building your Korvold deck. I want to keep refining this list. Other than that, I'm tapped out. We'll catch you later.